Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to give you a tour of my new Google Sheets Annual Budget Spreadsheet. This is a template that you can use for 12 months. Once those 12 months are over, you can just create a new copy and reuse it every year. So I'm going to walk you through how it works, all the features that I included, how you set it up, the things that you're supposed to edit, and then I'm going to talk about all the summaries and automations that I created. So if you have the template already, you can follow along watching the video. If you don't have the template yet, you can find a link to purchase it in the description, but you can also just watch this video to get inspired and create your own spreadsheet. So let's get into it. When you first receive your template, you're going to jump into the initial setup tab and you're going to go through all of these steps to customize your template. So the first thing you're going to do is select the month in which you want your template to begin, and you're going to set the year. So this is going to be your first month, and then the other 11 will adapt accordingly throughout the template. Then you're going to decide if you want your weeks to start on Sunday or Monday. On step 3, you can change the currency symbol that is going to be shown on the appropriate labels throughout the template. So I'm just going to give you a glimpse of how that looks like. Over here, you can see there's a $sign on the appropriate labels throughout the template. You can see it over here as well, over here. So you can change that symbol all at once from this one cell. All you have to do is delete it and then add your own symbol. And this is an example of what your labels are going to look like. So that's going to update in the appropriate labels throughout the template. And then if you don't want there to be any symbol in the labels, you can just leave that cell empty. I'm going to bring this one back. And on step 4, you're going to create a list of your payment methods so you can easily select them whenever you're adding expense transactions. And finally, you're going to change the time zone on your spreadsheet to make sure that your current day is always updating properly. So you're going to follow the instructions over here. Super simple. Just click on File, Settings, and then on this time zone drop down over here, just select your proper time zone and click on Save Settings. So once you go through this, you are ready to start working on your template. And we're going to start in the Annual Planner and Tracker tab. You can use this link over here to jump into the tab, or you can find it down here below. Annual Planner and Tracker tab. And initially, this tab is going to be completely empty. You get to customize it with your own categories. And the most important thing that you need to remember throughout the template is that you should only edit cells that have a white background. So when you're looking at the template, you can very easily see which are the cells that are expecting some input, which are the cells that you can edit. And then cells that have a colored background are either labels or formulas. So that's going to happen throughout the template. You should only edit cells that have a white background. So in this tab, the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to make a list of your categories. So you have a space for your income sources, your savings categories, your debts, and then your expenses. So I'm just going to add a few examples. So this is just an example of some categories, but you can completely customize this with your own categories. And if you need more space, you can just insert more rows. The only rule is that you have to insert new rows anywhere in the middle of each table without ever touching the first row or the last row of each section. So as long as you insert them anywhere in the middle of each table, it's perfectly fine. You can add as many rows as you need. So once that's done, the first step is to customize your categories. And then the second step is to add your expected amounts. So in this section over here, expected amounts, this first section, this is where you're going to create your plan for the year. So you're going to add the amounts that you expect to receive each month, how much of that is going to go to savings, how much of that is going to go to pay your debts, and then your budget for your expenses. So I'm just going to start filling this out with example information, completely random numbers. And as you can see, as soon as I am adding amounts, my totals are updating automatically over here. So if I scroll down and assign some of this income to my savings, this is the amount that I have left. So if I jump into the debt section now, my amount left keeps decreasing. And then finally, I'm just going to create a budget for each of my expense categories. So you're going to do the exact same thing for every single month, and you could go through each month individually, or you can just copy whatever you did on the first month and then paste it on the rest of the months and make the necessary adjustments. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that very quickly for the example. So you could absolutely skip this, but it's always nice to have a reference of what you expect your finances to look like for the year. So once that's done, you're going to scroll to the right and you're going to find a second section that looks exactly the same, but that is meant for actual amounts. So this is where you're going to track what actually happened. So instead of adding your expected amounts, you're going to add your real total amounts that you received this month, how much of that went into savings, how much of that went to paying your debt. And then if you scroll down, you're going to notice that this section meant for your actual amounts when it comes to expenses does not have a white background. So that means you're not supposed to edit this section directly. If you try, you're going to get an error. So the way this template works is you're going to fill out your actual amounts for income, savings, and debt up here in a very simple way. And then your expenses are going to get special treatment. Every single month is going to have its own expense tracker. So you can use the links up here to jump into the corresponding expense tracker. You just hover over the month and then click on the blue link, or you can find each of your 12 expense trackers down here when you scroll to the right to find the rest of your tabs. So as you can see, every single tab looks exactly the same. Every single month gets its own expense tracker. And what's going to happen is whatever transactions you add on each of these tabs are going to be used to fill out this section automatically. So let's jump into the first month and let me show you how that would look like. As I mentioned before, you should only edit cells that have a white background. So right out of the box, you can very easily see which are the cells that are expecting your input, and then you can see which are the ones that are automated and you should not touch. Now you're going to notice that this tab includes two separate tables. They are both meant to help you track your expense transactions, but they do behave differently. So I'm going to walk you through an example in a moment. We're going to fill this out a bit, but I want you to understand the main difference first. And it's that in this table up here, the one called fixed expenses, any transaction that you add in this table will not count towards any summary, towards any total. The spreadsheet will basically behave as if this transaction did not exist until you check the box. So once you check the box, then it's automatically added to your totals, to your summaries. So you can add transactions in here and they will not count until you mark them as paid by checking the box. And then anything you add down here in this second table will be automatically considered as paid. So anything you add here will automatically count towards your summaries, towards your totals, and then anything that you add up here will only count if you check the box. So that being said, let me walk you through an example so you can actually see how the spreadsheet would behave. Now I'm going to start by adding a very simple transaction. Let's do rent, and I'm going to do that in this first table up here. So the first thing I'm going to do is input the day as one number. Super important, you do not need to add the full date in this cell. All you need to do is add the day, and then the full date is going to get created automatically over here using the tabs month and year. So that happens on every single row. All you have to do is add the day as one number, and the date gets created automatically over here. So I'm just going to delete this, and then in the second column, you're going to choose one of your expense categories. So this list gets created automatically with the categories that you added over here at the beginning. So this is fully customizable. You can either click on the arrow and select your category, or you can start typing and the list will get filtered so you can pick a category more easily. You can add a description if you want, and then you're going to input your amount. And what's going to happen is your total pending amount is going to increase, and nothing is going to happen to your total paid amount until you check the box. So if I check the box, then I no longer have a total pending amount, and then the total paid amount increased and my total up here also increased. So the rest of these columns are optional. The only thing that truly matters is that you select an expense category and that you add an amount. And if you want this transaction to be included in your totals and in your summaries, you need to check the box. Now, the table down below works exactly the same way. The only difference is that you don't need to check any boxes. Whatever you add here will be immediately included in your totals and in your summaries. So we could do groceries, for example. Again, you only have to set the day as one number. You select one of your expense categories. You could add a description, for example. You set an amount, and you're going to notice that as soon as I added the amount, my total paid increased. And then up here, what you're going to be seeing is the total added up from both tables. So you can see the 1,800 plus the 200, and this is the total that you're going to be seeing up here. If I hadn't checked this box, then you would only be seeing 200. You would only be seeing what you have down here. So hopefully that makes it clear. Anything that you add in this first table will only be included in your totals if you check the box to mark it as paid. Anything that you add down here is immediately included in your totals and in your summaries. So I'm going to go ahead and add more transactions on each table so you can see how that would look like. And then I'm going to talk about the summaries that get created automatically to the right. So I switched to June 2025 because that's my current month. Today is June 12th. And the first thing you're going to notice is that some of these dates are highlighted in red. That's because these dates have already passed and I haven't checked the box. So I just highlighted those as a small reminder. As soon as I check the boxes, then the red highlight disappears. And you're going to notice that in this summary right here, my total paid amount is increasing with every checked box. So in this first summary, this is the main summary, you're going to be seeing each of your categories, the ones that you added at the beginning, and then the budget that you set for this month for each of those categories. And to the right, you're going to get your total paid added up from each of your transactions. So you can see how these are increasing as soon as I'm checking boxes. And then everything I added here has already been included in my totals. So you can see the percentage that each of these categories represents out of your total paid expenses for the month. And then you can see a difference between your budget and what you actually paid. And you can sort this table by expense category. You can sort it by the budget. I like to keep it sorted by total paid, so I get my highest amount at the top. And just a reminder, pending transactions are not included in any summary. So you get that label up here so you don't forget. And then if you scroll to the right, you're going to see a summary for payment method and a summary for custom tag. So both of these columns are completely optional. What you're going to be seeing in this list is the payment methods that you customized at the beginning. And then you can manually add one tag to each of your transactions. So this is completely optional and how you use it is totally up to you, but it's there if you need it. You can also sort both of these tables. And then if you scroll to the right, what you're going to be seeing is every single one of your paid transactions joined together. Every single transaction that has the box checked, and then every single transaction that's included in this second table down here, all joined together so you can see them together. You can sort them if you want. You could sort them by expense category, for example. You could sort them by date. You could sort them by payment method. So this table is just meant for your own reference. And if you need to jump into one of these transactions, all you have to do is use this link over here, and you're going to immediately jump into the corresponding transaction in case you need to reference it for some reason. And then if you scroll to the very end, what you're going to be seeing are your pending transactions. So if I hadn't checked any of these boxes, I'm just going to uncheck them all. If I hadn't checked any of these boxes, every single one of those transactions would show up in this table, and they will be sorted by date. So the one that's older or coming up next will always be at the top. And same thing, you can use these links to jump into the corresponding transaction and then check the box. So if I check every single one of these boxes, then I won't be seeing anything here. And finally, I also included a feature where you can highlight every single transaction that belongs to a specific expense category. So if you use this drop down up here and you highlight groceries, for example, you're going to see that every single transaction that belongs to the groceries category will get highlighted. The groceries category gets highlighted over here, and every single transaction will get highlighted over here as well. And if I had something here, it would be highlighted as well. And super important, you can add as many rows as you want on each of these tables. All you have to do is insert new rows somewhere in the middle of each table. So you should never touch the first row or the last row of each section to insert new rows. So you can insert as many rows as you like, as long as you do it in the middle of each table. So this is how it works. Everything that you're seeing here is completely optional. You can absolutely ignore it if you want. The only thing that matters is that every single one of your transactions has a valid expense category. So any expense category that you use here has to exist in this table right here. So if you need to create a new expense category, you jump back into this table and you add it here, and it will automatically show up in your drop downs. So that's pretty much all you have to input, and then everything else is automated. I filled this with a lot of cool summaries, and I'm going to walk you through them in a second. But just to recap, you go through the steps in the initial setup, and then you jump into your annual planner and tracker tab. You create your categories, you add your expected amounts for the year so you can have an idea of what your year will look like. And then your actual amounts for income, savings, and debt, you add those very easily into these tables. And your expenses, your actual expense transactions, those get special treatment. Each month gets its own expense tracker tab, so you can hover over these links and then click on the blue link to jump into the corresponding tab, or you can find each of your monthly expense tracker tabs down here, and each of these tabs gets two sections. The first one, anything that you add here will only be included in your totals and summaries if you check the box, and then on the second one, anything that you add here will be immediately included in your totals and in your summaries. And then everything else is automated. Now you might be wondering what else could be useful about the pending transactions feature. So what I did here is I also created a 12-month summary. You're going to find that in the pending transactions tab. And what you're going to be seeing in this summary is every single transaction that does not have a box checked from any one of your 12 tabs is going to be listed here, and it's going to be sorted by date. The oldest one at the top. So anything that's red is overdue. Anything that's purple is due today. Today is June 12th for me. And then anything that's blue is an upcoming transaction. So you can either glance at the list or you can see a visual reference over here of the days that have a pending transaction assigned to them. So this can be a place where you check in and then you can see what's pending. And if you're ready to pay it, you can hover and click on the link. You can go ahead and check the boxes, and when the box is checked, then they're going to be gone from this list. So I'm just going to check this one as well. So nothing's overdue. And then if I come back here, now all I'm seeing are upcoming transactions, which are color coded as blue. So personally, the way I use this and why I built this is there are certain transactions that I actually have to go ahead and do something to pay them. So they're not automated. I have to do a wire transfer. So anything that I'm already committed to paying that's not automated and that I have to remember that it exists, I will add into this table. And the cool thing is you can add it before you actually pay it, and it will not count towards your totals and towards your summaries until you check the box. And if the box is not checked, it's going to show up in your pending transactions view. And then if you have the same transactions every month, it's very easy to just copy this list starting on the day. Do not bring the checkboxes with you. So you copy this list and then you can go ahead and paste it on a new month. And what's going to happen is the full date is going to adapt to whatever month you're working on. So you can make any adjustments to the due date, change anything that you need, and then wait until you actually pay this and check the box. So now that you know how it works, you can use this however you prefer depending on your circumstances, or you can also completely ignore this section and just use this table below. Now, since this is a 12-month template, I also included annual summaries. You can scroll to the right to find them in your tabs down below. And I'm going to talk about those in a second. But first, I want to talk to you about how you can navigate the template more easily. Since I added so many things into this, obviously I don't expect you to remember where everything is. So to help you navigate all the features, I also included a main menu tab. So in here, you don't have to do anything. It's all links and important reminders and important information. So first, what you're going to be seeing at the top is the most basic summary you could possibly get. It's your total actual amounts for each section for the entire 12 months. You're going to be seeing your total pending down here. If you have any pending transactions that are overdue, if there are any that are due today, how many transactions are upcoming, and anything that's underlined is going to be a link. So if you want to jump into the pending transactions tab very quickly, you can hover over these, or you can click on it and then click on the blue link, and that's going to bring you to that section. So at the top of every single one of your tabs, you're going to be seeing a main menu link. If you hover over it, you can click on the blue link and it's always going to be bringing you back to the main menu. So down here, this is how you're going to navigate the template. I included links to the main sections of the template. So based on what you're wanting to do, you're going to use one of these links to jump into that section. So we went through the initial setup at the beginning, but if you ever need to go back to that section, you can use this link. This one, you can use it whenever you need to add new payment methods. This one, it's for whenever you need to add new income, savings, debt, or expense categories. This one will bring you to your expected amounts, the table that you built at the beginning with your plan for the year. And then whenever you need to track your income, savings, and debt, you're going to use this link and it's going to bring you to this section over here. So you can add your amounts for the month. I added a star to this section because it's the one that you're going to be using the most. I also added that star over here. And then whenever you need to track your expenses, you're going to jump into the corresponding monthly tab. So this section also gets a star. So you select the month and then you jump into the corresponding tab and you add your expenses. So the ones with the stars are the ones that you're going to be using the most. And finally, down here, you can use this to jump into your summaries. So we already went through the pending transactions tab, and now I'm going to talk about the other 3 cool summaries that I included in the template. So this first summary right here is going to be found in the 3rd section of the Annual Planner and Tracker tab. So the first section is meant for expected amounts, the second section is meant for actual amounts, and then the 3rd section is the space where you can compare expected versus actual amounts. And what's cool about this section is that you get to decide the range of months that you want to compare. So if you just want to see 1 month, what you're going to do is you're going to select that 1 month on both of these drop downs. And what's going to happen is totals for this 1 month are going to get pulled automatically into this summary. You're going to be seeing your expected amounts, your actual amounts, and then the difference between both. So if you scroll down, you're going to find that same information for every single category. And then to the right, you're going to be seeing a ranking for actual amounts. So I love rankings. I love knowing which is the category that did best when it comes to my income, where I spent the most money. So this summary is going to get sorted and it's going to show your highest amount at the top for your actual amounts. So you can compare 1 month, you can compare 2 months, you could do the first quarter, you could do the second quarter, so that would be April to June, or you could also choose to display the entire year, which means you would have to select the first month and the last month, and then totals for that whole year are going to be loaded automatically into the summary. So you can jump to that section using these expected versus actual compare a range link. And then the second link is a 12-month summary for actual amounts. If you scroll to the right on your tabs, you're going to find it at the end, or you can just use this link to jump into that summary. I'm going to zoom out a bit. So what you get in this tab are totals and summaries for your actual amounts. So you get a 12-month summary at the top, you get a graph, and then if you scroll down, you can see a summary by section. So to the left, you're going to get a table that's sorted by month. So you can see your total amounts per month, the percentage that each month represents, and then you get a graph with that same information. It's just more visual. And to the right, again, I love rankings. So these tables are going to be sorted, showing the highest amounts at the top. So you can see which was the month in which you made the most money, the one in which you saved the most, you paid the most debt. You can also see which was the month in which you spent the most money, and then the one that had the highest amount left. So all of this is automated. You don't have to do anything here. And finally, your 3rd summary is a 12-month expected versus actual summary. So that one you also find at the end, or you can use the link to jump into that section. So in this tab, what you're going to be seeing is a summary of the total amounts that you were expecting for each section, and then what actually happened and the difference between those. So at the top, you get a 12-month summary, and then to the right, there's a graph with that same information, again, just more visual. And then down below, you're going to be seeing a summary for each individual month. So what you have on each of these tables is your total income minus your savings minus debt minus expenses, and this is how much you have left each individual month. And then this is how much you have left for all 12 months. And if you scroll down, you're going to find a summary for each section, your total expected amount for each month, your total actual amount, and then the difference and expected versus actual amounts shown as a graph in case you need a visual reference. Now, everything in here is completely automated. You don't have to do anything here, but I did add a couple of settings that you can customize that could be useful for some of you. You can absolutely ignore them if they're not useful to you, but I've had some people request being able to see how their amount left would look like if they included a starting balance from previous years. So if you want to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to add an expected starting balance in this cell and then your actual starting balance. So once you add those numbers, nothing is going to happen yet until you include the starting balance in the summaries. So you do that by checking this box, and as soon as I check the box, you're going to notice that the starting balance appeared in the summary. So now what you're seeing is the starting balance plus your income for that year, minus savings, minus debt, minus expenses, and then you're going to be seeing your new amount left. And this is only going to affect these 12-month summaries. It's not going to do anything to your monthly summaries unless you decide to carry over the previous amount left. So if you check this box, what you're going to be seeing is your starting balance plus your income minus savings minus debt minus expenses, and this is going to be your new amount left. So this is including your starting balance. And since you're carrying over the previous amount left, what's going to happen next month is you're going to be seeing the previous amount left at the top, and what you're going to be seeing at the bottom is your new amount left. So with this box checked, you're going to be carrying over your previous amount left every month. And if you have that box unchecked, what you're going to be seeing each month is the amount left that individual month. So you can check and uncheck these boxes as often as you like, or you can completely ignore these settings if they're not useful to you. So those are the 3 big summaries that I included. And once your 12 months are over, the proper way to keep going is to create a new file. So you can do that very easily by clicking on this link. You're going to create a new blank copy so you can start fresh, you can customize it again. So each year you can get a fresh start and reuse the template. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and I will be happy to answer them. I'm going to leave my email in the description down below. And if you don't have the template already, I'm also going to leave the link to purchase it in the description down below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.